Hello and welcome to the edition of Red, White and Black, your connection to Black Canadian culture and current events. Today we will be looking at the definition and demographics of being Black in Canada.
Being Black in Canada is a very interesting thing because, we're very diverse. And what it means today isn't what it has always meant. But it's also something that we have to know the evolution of, right? Because at the beginning it was defined by a lot of different elements, and so if we can, I would like to go back to really the States, because this is where the large majority of the first blacks come into the equation in Canada is through slavery, being brought here. Although if you want to look at it from another perspective, that could be entirely untrue, and in that there's a situation, so when we go back to the early history of Canada, we're looking at the colonies as a whole. So there's 17 colonies on the actual continent. As we know, at a point, 13 of them broke off, became the United States. But before that happened, they put forth a lot of legislation about, most of it about race. And they, at the time, in the early, British colonies, which also includes, by the way, the Caribbean, but at the early British colonies, they were defined by Virginia, which was Virginia law, which was the law of the new colony of England, and all these other colonies, they had the right to make their own, but they essentially worked under the same parliamentarian whole system at this point. One centralized government, the other ones do their own things. And at this time in history, the interesting thing was that in the 1600s, early 1600s, the early colonies were overwhelmingly native colonies. What ends up happening, though, is people start bringing in African slaves. Not as much as we've been taught, or that we like to think about the topic, but they start coming in at a later point. In fact, there's also indentured servants from Ireland who are a part of this, but they are the smallest minority. And there was this overwhelming need for labor, right? There's a lot of stuff that needed to be done. All the animals, for example, had to be fed, so you have to create food. Who better to farm the land than the people who know the land, who've been farming the land for centuries, and who are part of that. Essentially, then of course you have obviously what they're there for, to make money, right? So at this point you need people to pick cotton, right? And once again, people on the land who have lived in the land have done so for thousands of years. They're going to be the best people to do these things. However, what they noticed with the African slaves was that Africans tended to be a lot taller, and they tended to be more muscular, more well built, and so African slaves were seen as, or perceived as being better slaves. Whether this is true or not is not really relevant to me, but this is how they were perceived. And as a consequence, they were seen as the high-rung slaves, the slaves that are are valued more, right? And as a slave trader, you know, if you can think, this is where you're making your money, you want your slaves to be as valuable as possible. So for them, this commodity, was kind of a luxury commodity over, it's like a foreign car versus your local Ford, right? And so it was a special thing, right? But it was worth more. And so what they would do is they often have, their slaves. Actually, there's a point they talk about. There was at any given point up until the creation of the 1682 Virginia Slave Act. Up until that point, there was always 2/3 native slaves. There was never a point that there was any majority of African slaves there. But this becomes a very difficult situation because a lot of people were like, okay, well, you know what, I want, a lot of people wanted to have African slaves, and so what they would do is they mix the natives with the Africans, right? They breed the natives with the Africans to make more African slaves, right? Because it's expensive to travel across the Atlantic. It's wasteful and costly, et cetera, et cetera. So the best way to do this is just mix it, right? And then that way, and you can imagine over generations you get large portions of people who are mixed. They have one ancestor that's black, several of them that are native, but the black genes are fairly dominant. And the other aspect comes down to the fact that people then start saying, this is why we get the one drop rule, right? To identify this, and of course the fact that if you're mixed with if you want to rape your slaves, well, they're not my children. Yes, that is also true, but it's also to identify, that now that this slave, this native slave or primarily native slave has black blood. They're officially black, so you don't have to worry about it, and you can sell them for top price. The effect of this was to create a situation where you have mixed race people. In addition to that, you also have people, the slave traders themselves. They were annoyed at the fact that they used to have to keep track of this, and it was legal. They were legally responsible for keeping track of the historical lines of those slaves. Which is why when we go back in the older records, you'll see that it'll say, for example, this slave taken from the Ashanti, this slave taken from the Ninga, this slave was taken from Choctaw, and this combination of things is really annoying to people. It causes them to, the slave owners were just like, look, I don't want to keep this whole doctrine of these guys, right? In addition, then there's other people who are saying, this guy's ripping me off because this guy's not, this slave wasn't an African slave, he was a native slave, and he cost the same as an African slave. So how they put this whole thing to rest and made it all even is to say, okay, you know what, we can't lower the price by making these guys natives, making everybody's slaves native. So what we'll do is make them all African. And so when you look at the Virginia Slave Act of 1682, this is what you find: the complete elimination of the native slave, and the new group of slaves, which is all of them. The new definition, the term is now Negro. And so this is what a Negro is, which is the combination of a small percentage of Africans, this major percentage of Native American blood, and then it is after this in the 1700s that we start to see the colonies that are built in Nova Scotia. And this is Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, I should say, to buy slaves because they need to set up for the north. So they're buying them from the south and bringing them up north. They're buying, and if you look, I've actually looked into this history quite a bit actually for my own historical reasons. You'll find that they're almost always labeled Negroes, and when they are, this is the definition of what a Negro is. And these are some of the first blacks in Canada. These guys, as far as we know, and for the most part, aren't mixed. These are full-bloods, but you will notice that their skin is a lot darker. Look at some of these older pictures. They were taken by the same artist. There's one guy who's doing the vast majority of this art. Back in the day, cameras were extremely expensive. They're very clunky. They're not what we have now. They're these big giant box things that you have to carry around and have a light and light something on fire and poof and all that sorts of stuff. So not very many people could take these pictures. So there was mainly this one guy. I can't recall his name right now. Who took most of these pictures. However, like I said, these guys are full bloods, right? And but they definitely do have a lot of features that are synonymous with what we think of as black today, or black people today. And we share these things in common, obviously, because we have both heritages. But to your question, so the modern natives that you'll see, who are all very pale, and there's a lot of things going on, in North America that we don't understand because we're not taught North American history. We're taught, we're taught North American history. We're not taught North American our story, right? History is specific. It comes from a specific place and from a specific perspective, right? Our story is inclusive of all the people of the earth, right? And specific to us in this particular context. So, these elders here would have been, guys, that escaped this whole crazy phenomenon of slavery and whatnot. But a lot of the modern day natives today, there's a couple of things going on, and it's unfortunate I have to mention it because a lot of times, they get upset about these types of things because a lot of them are taught to think that they are full bloods and taught to take a lot of pride in this. And I understand, and there's nothing wrong with that, being the case, because we should all act and respect our culture that way, regardless. Because we are mixed with something doesn't mean that you're any less native, right, or any less committed to the cause. But throughout the decades, what ended up happening was several different things. There was a commitment to one, but the Europeans were very focused on land, on ownership of land, and trying to gain the rights to land was the main thing, especially here in Canada. In America, they didn't really care about much. They made up all sorts of laws. They already decided that they owned the land, right? They said, you know what, we own all this crap. This is all ours. In Canada, they had a little bit more of a conscience and a little bit more of a concern for the long term, right? And they tried to swindle the land a lot more, right? They tried to convince people to give them the land, so they would draw the borders. Do you agree to this? Huh? Yeah. Do you? Yeah. Sure. Whatever. You know, of course, our people didn't deal with things the same way, nor did we understand what they meant by ownership of the land versus what we meant, which was two different things. And a lot of times, they try to breed themselves into hereditary title. Okay, this is the point behind this, especially with white men sleeping with Native women, right? Red women, for us now, for many of the Native nations, our lineage runs through the mother's line, and we are connected to Mother Earth through our mothers, right? So that entitles you to protection, or really makes you responsible for the land, which they would deem as ownership of the land, right? And then of course they wrote the laws to make it so that women can't have this, that, or the other, that they become the properties of their husbands, etc., etc. All sorts of confusion and manipulation put into things, but through this whole process, they're breeding themselves into indigeneity, as well as through the process of sterilization of the men that went on for hundreds of years, and then they reversed it and started doing it to the women. But they would do this process of sterilization in regions, which meant that the only way that you could procreate, the only way that you could have children, was to be mixed with white people, which of course dilutes things, and it changes your loyalties. It does, because if I have, and speaking as a mixed man myself, I have Native lineage and black lineage as well, and I am loyal to both. And thankfully, these two races aren't competitive with one another, because that could cause some major divide, some major conflict within myself. And so for natives and whites, people who share that heritage, they now do have that conflict, right? They have that conflict because who am I going to be loyal to, my mother or my father? Which history, which culture am I going to be loyal to? So this is what lightened up, what we today see. The vast majority of natives will, usually admit now that they are Métis, right, mixed. But the rest of them, either don't want to admit it or actually don't know it. Yeah, in Canada, well, first off, we're going back to the example that we're referring to with Nova Scotia. Both in Nova Scotia and in New Brunswick, by the way, there definitely are sizable communities that have this lineage. The problem with Canada was, and is that Canada had a residential school system for a reason. That reason was not only to torture and torment and get rid of the Indian, but get rid of this relationship and understanding of this whole history, right? This whole history. So when I look at my grandfather, for example, right? My grandfather was a shaman. He was a healer. He was a great healer. He would teach things. But the problem was that they outlawed, here in Canada, they outlawed these practices. Any native practices were outlawed by law. So if you were caught healing anybody, if you were caught teaching anything, it was illegal. You could go to jail for this. right? And with the residential schools, right, if you designated yourself a native, right, they would take your children away, right? And so what they did was they would go around, and I know this, I remember, talking to my grandmother about this because this is something that was influencing her and my great grandmother. They would come around and do census, right? And this isn't at the time. They used to do it by province. You could be either red, you could be white, or you could be black. And there was no combination. You couldn't state it. You couldn't state it. We're this, that, or the other. If you were red, that meant you had entitlement to the land, but not entitlement to your children. You lose your children. So if you're white, well, you get white privilege. And if you're black, you're entitled to your children, you're not entitled to your land.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
So this allows for people to say, okay, and make that decision. Now, you are the husband, your wife's there, and you get the census paper, and what's going to be your decision? Right? Do you lose your land or do you lose your children? That's what's posed to you. These are the questions posed to my ancestors.
Okay.
And the vast majority of us, we chose to keep our children.